The Premier League has witnessed some of the best talents to ever kick a football. There's the likes of Ronaldo, Thierry Henry, yeah? You got people like Didier Drogba, Steven Gerrard, the list goes on. But in the Premier League, we have also had players that were bossing it for a brief period of time. I mean, these guys were going absolutely ham in the league and then just fell off the radar. Like, we actually don't know what happened to them. Who are those players, you ask? Well, I'm about to give you 10 of the Premier League players which the streets will never forget. Ben Arfa was an outrageous footballer. There were times when I wanted him to come to my club. He was ridiculous and he probably could have hit the heights of his career if his attitude was a bit better. The Newcastle fans were treated to some breathtaking performances from the Frenchman. There were times where he would score Lionel Messi-esque worldies, absolute stunners of goals during his time at St. James's Park. He was then sent on loan to Hull City where he only made 8 appearances. He was then bought by Nice where his form was rediscovered, scoring 17 goals, which landed him a move to PSG where it didn't go right either. I'm telling you, Ben Arfa could have been the absolute man. It's just unfortunate that his career didn't go in the way that we all hoped it would. Now we're going to stick with Newcastle and talk about one of the most deadly strike forces that they probably ever had in Papa Cissé and Demba Ba. Now I know what you're thinking, why is he mentioning both? Listen, yeah, at the time you couldn't tear these guys apart. Demba Ba and Papa Cissé together was an absolute madness. In the 2011 to 2012 season, they scored 29 goals between them. 29 goals. Papa Cissé scoring an absolute welter against Chelsea. Yeah, this has to be one of the best goals to ever be scored in the Premier League. Petr Cech didn't know what to do. In that season, they finished in 5th place above Chelsea and Liverpool. That's just how good they were. Gamst Pedersen was a winger that played for Blackburn for several years. This is another player that I wish came to my club. I just thought he was the bollocks. This guy was a scorer of great goals and free kicks. Oh, could he take him? You just knew if Morten Pedersen, was stepped over this free kick, it was hitting the back of the net. And what an absolute bargain as well. They had just sold Damien Duff to Chelsea for £17 million. They picked up Pedersen for £1.5 million. And this guy was an absolute revelation. Gamst Pedersen scored 35 goals for Blackburn before being moved to Turkey on a free. I know for a fact that the streets will shed a tear when they start to remember just how good Michu was when he arrived at Swansea in 2012. The Spanish striker that only cost them £2 million scored 18 goals in 35 appearances in his first season in the Premier League. Oh, he used to rip teams apart. Arsenal used to get it the most. This guy loved scoring against my team. I hated him. In 2014, he signed for Napoli, but was only able to make 6 appearances for the Italian side. After that injury, he just couldn't get fit, and after not appearing for Swansea since April 2014, he was then released from his contract in November 2015. He joined his first ever club, Oviedo, but in 2017, he had to announce his retirement from professional football at the age of 31. In terms of pure skill, Taarabt is right up there amongst the best players of the Premier League era. He was dubbed as the new wonder kid on the streets when he signed for Spurs, but he didn't really have a good time when he was in North London, only making 9 appearances for Spurs. He was then sent on loan to Queen's Park Rangers, but his loan was cut short after suffering an injury. He rejoined them on loan the following season and actually came out and said that he regretted signing for Spurs in the first place and that he actually should have went to Arsenal. He signed for Queen's Park Rangers in 2010 permanently for a reported £1 million, where he scored 19 goals in 44 appearances. And that was probably the best period of his career because he wasn't able to rediscover that form anywhere else he's been. He played for Fulham, Milan, he's at Benfica right now. He just couldn't get it right. When you're trying to build a striker, Andy Johnson is not the mold you would build a striker in. Like, he's small, he's tiny, he doesn't look like he can barge people off the ball, but this guy went absolutely crazy when Crystal Palace came up to the Premier League. The 2004 to 2005 season, he finished 2nd top scorer in the Premier League. Andy Johnson scored 21 goals in that season, and that eventually rewarded him with a move to Everton, where he scored 17 goals for Everton, but his career just wasn't the same after he moved from Crystal Palace. As for this player, it's a bit of a weird one because he actually went 14 games without scoring for Portsmouth when he arrived arrived in England. But when he got his goals, oh, they kept coming. Benjani signed for Portsmouth for £4.1 million after being recommended to Harry Redknapp by Arsene Wenger. His goal scoring form was so good that Manchester City came calling with an £8 million bid to take Benjani all the way to Manchester City. There's actually a funny story that Harry Redknapp tells where Benjani is actually reluctant to go to Manchester City. Now this is the time where Manchester City are coming up. They're trying to win titles, they're trying to win cups and that, and Benjani didn't want to go. And to be honest, he was probably right in not wanting to go to Manchester City because he was only able to score 4 goals in 23 appearances for City. That is terrible. That is bad for a striker. In terms of the streets never forgetting, this story is quite sad because Dean Ashton could have been one of the best strikers to ever grace the Premier League, but injuries took their toll. Norwich City broke their transfer record at the time and paid £3 million to bring Dean Ashton to the club. This guy scored so many important goals when Norwich were in the Premier League, and a lot of people thought that he would be the key in Norwich staying in the Premier League, but it wasn't to be. They were relegated that season. After being relegated, Dean Ashton stayed with Norwich, but then moved to West Ham in January for £7 million. And he also had an impressive start for West Ham too, but his career would be cut short with an injury that he would suffer while playing for England. He broke his leg and he just couldn't get back. I mean, there was a time where he said that he could hear his ankle rubbing together. Oh, that must sound so disgusting. He would go on to retire from professional football at the age of 26. And it's just a sad, sad story, but the streets will never forget Dean Ashton. Andrei Arshavin signed for Arsenal in 2009 in January, and this is just how good he was. From the time he arrived to the end of the season, this guy came second in Arsenal's Player of the Season poll. And it was well deserved. This guy went to Anfield and scored 4 goals. Four of them. One player. Yes, some people go to Anfield and can't even score 1. But this little magician went to Liverpool and slapped 4 goals past them without no fear. That first glimpse of Arshavin, you thought this guy was gonna be a wonder at Arsenal. But he only scored 23 goals in 105 appearances for Arsenal, which is not too great. Which is a shame because off the back of a World Cup, you thought this guy was gonna do bits in the Premier League, but it just wasn't to be. And the last one is Asamoah Gyan. Listen, I didn't want to include this guy in. Yeah, these lot behind the camera, they wanted me to include this guy in because I am still mad about his miss in the World Cup. Yeah, I'm devastated. This guy just should have placed the thing. This guy wants to roast it, hits the bar, we go out. But a lot of people feel that Asamoah Gyan could have played for one of the biggest clubs in Europe, at least if he didn't go and chase money. But he was a success at Sunderland where he scored 11 goals for them and even scoring on his debut. And there's no way that the streets will forget his beautiful dancing whenever he scored. And that is it for the 10 players that I feel the streets will never forget. Is there anyone I've forgotten? Is there any players that you feel had a brief period of time where they were smashing it and just fell off a cliff? Let me know in the comments.